Hi, this is Amy with the Hag Reads, and I am here with two books. This should be a fairly short video. Both of these books are part of series, so I don't need to go into any real depth with them. And I think, at least for the second one, people are familiar enough with what the book is about because there's been a movie about it. So I don't think I'll need to go terribly into depth about it. And I'm losing the light and I'm a little winded. I was just in my son's room and he was sharing some Twitter stuff. You know, I never go on Twitter. I have a Twitter, but I never go on there for anything. It feels just like if Facebook were 12 years old, I guess. Maybe I'm just too old to really get Facebook or not Facebook, but to get Twitter. Although he does read me hysterical stuff off of there sometimes. So the first book I want to talk about today is The Winthrop House, which is book 2 of the Winthrop House series. The first book was A House by the Sea, which I talked about earlier this week, I believe. And the premise of that book was there was a family who bought a house. He was an author. They bought this really nice kind of almost mansion house by the sea in Maine, I think, in a small town, and found out that the land is bad and there's kind of an evil entity type of issue. And so this is the start of a second book, and that family no longer lives in the house. And so what we have are a group of 3 college students, 2 guys and 1 girl, who are kind of at odds with their lives right now. They've been in college, you know, they're not doing poorly, but they're not very motivated. They have their own family issues. They've all got something that they're kind of running away from, and it's not bad things. It's just I think they feel overwhelmed by life, and so they've decided to take this road trip. And they've been on the road for several months, and they're starting to get annoyed by each other, and their personal drama is they're kind of nattering at each other, even though they're really good friends. And so they've driven into Maine, and they have been lost for several hours. They are tired. They are hungry. It is raining. And they come across the Winthrop house, which is empty. And, you know, as it was described in the other book, the house is beautiful. And so they decide that they're going to look around the house and maybe if they can find a way to... Well, I think they realize it's abandoned, but they go up and they hope that they can get directions or use a phone, because the cell service isn't very good. That's what it initially was. So they go up and they're trying to knock on the door and nobody answers. And I think they knew initially that it was abandoned because the yard isn't in great shape. But they wind up going around to the back and they find the door open and they go in. And since they're already lost and it's late and they're tired, they decide as a group to stay in the house because it still has electricity, running water, hot water. And so they decide, they get their sleeping bags and all that stuff, and they're trying to figure out, because they don't really know where they are. They haven't seen a town or a gas station for, the better part of the day. And they're frustrated with each other and blaming on whose idea it was to drive this way. And so they bring all this drama into the house where we already know that there's, an evil entity active, and that unsavory things happen to people who live in or visit the house. And that's really all I can say about it, is the continuation of the story about this house with a different group of people, more or less with the same result. You get slightly more history, but not too much more. And the house kind of reveals itself a little bit more. This one is by Ambrose Ibsen, and I don't think I said that. So I talked about him before, where I've said I can imagine almost every book written by him as a B movie on Netflix, and this is very typical of that. It was a good, light, fast read, not great. It's not literary fiction. It's not going to make you think about life, but it does make you think about what might be out there. And so if you like that sort of thing, I would recommend it. His books are very formula, though. So once you've read a couple, you can kind of guess the plot. But, the reason I read these is because my son loves them. And it provides us something that we can talk about where he doesn't roll his eyes at me or try and scuttle out of the room. Because he'll stand the hallway going... you go through the doorway that's right over here, and you go around the corner. It's almost a U-turn, and you're in his room. But he'll stand there, and I'll be talking to him, and he'll be surreptitiously trying to scuttle backwards through the hallway. Like, I'm not going to notice that he's slowly backing out of the conversation. But in reading these together, not necessarily at the same time, but in reading some of the books that he's reading, because by and large, he doesn't have any interest in the type of books I like to read. Every now and then we match up on something. He's like, "You're reading that? That looks so good. I want to read it." But typically, I just wind up reading whatever it is he's into. And for the most part, I enjoy it. But at this point in my life, this isn't the type of author I would go for. These are not geared towards a YA audience, but I think older YA readers, 16, 17, 18, would enjoy his writing. I think it actually falls into the category of, I think the new category they've made is, new adult? So people who are college age or, I guess between 18 and 25. I think that's what it's aimed at. I think that's the perfect audience for this book, between 16 and 25. Are probably going to enjoy this the most. Or people who just love horror, a good evil entity, the land is bad on the level that, say, the housing development in Poltergeist is bad, but not for the same reasons. And so it does have a certain draw because you can envision it as that bad movie. This is the book equivalent of a B movie, and I kind of do dig that. The second book I want to talk about is The Last Star by Rick Yancy, which is the final book in the Fifth Wave trilogy. I enjoyed the first book and thought it would have made a fine standalone. I think the ending, it's one of those that left you to wonder kind of what happens, but you could see 2 or 3 different paths that could have been taken. I thought the second book was completely unnecessary. It was just a plot device to get to the third book. It wasn't really a full story on its own because it was completely dependent on the first book and the third book. If you just happened to go and buy the second book and not know it was part of a trilogy, you would have been lost. It didn't stand on its own. And it also was kind of muddy in terms of plot. At least I thought it was. This wraps up the whole series. Anyone who survived the first 2 books is back in this book. There are more bad guys than before, and they're unexpected. And the conclusion does have a few twists. It doesn't have a happy storybook ending, but I think it had kind of a realistic ending if you want to think about possible resolutions to alien invasion. It was interesting, but I didn't love this series the way that some people apparently did. It got a lot of hype, and I didn't even really care for the movie. And that's the reason I read the book, was because I wanted, when the movie came out on DVD, I thought, well, I'll read the book and I'll watch the movie. And I probably should have just stopped at the first book. I know a lot of people really love this, and this is a YA series. I think the heroine was really, what do I want to say here? she made a lot of bad decisions for emotional reasons, and I feel like there were a number of characters that fell into that, and I think that's fairly typical of YA, and probably representative of, you know, teenagers in general, because that's just how it is. But I didn't love this, and I don't think I would probably recommend it. You know, if somebody said, "Do you know a good YA series?" This would not be, you know, even in the top 30 for me in recommending YA series. But I know it was well liked overall. It has good reviews on Goodreads. It has, you know, the movie, I think, got a pretty good reception. This is maybe, I think this is all I've read by Rick Yancey. I'm not 100% sure. But I probably wouldn't be inclined to pick up anything else by him, just because this didn't bring me joy in my reading. It frustrated me. And that's all I have for this video. I think I gave the last star 2 or 3 stars on Goodreads. It was okay, but I wasn't wowed by it, and I didn't, you know, I wasn't terribly invested in the characters. I won't say I didn't like them, but I just didn't get emotionally vested in them like I did, say, with Harry Potter, or I really like Rick Riordan. I love his YA series, and I know a lot of people have said they don't, but I really like him. So maybe Rick Yancey's writing just isn't for me, but I know a lot of people do like him. That's all I have for today. I hope you are having a good day. I'm happy whatever time of day it is for you when you watch this, and I will be back next time. Thank you for watching, and if you watched to the end, extra thank yous. I will see you next time. Bye.